Hi everyone, back with more about risk aversion. This time we're going to look at the formal relationship between risk aversion and utility. We're still on chapter 27. Let's review our notion of utility. So think about a hungry person that is really hungry and is presented with the chance to have a bunch of hamburgers. So he eats that first one. Being really hungry, that first one tastes really good. That first burger gives him a lot of happiness, a lot of satisfaction, a lot of utility. But he's still hungry, so he goes ahead and eats a second one. The second one for sure will make him happier than before, right? So there will be an additional amount of happiness, additional amount of utility. But eating that second burger will not give him as much pleasure as eating that first burger. So we say in this case that the marginal utility, the increase in happiness that he gets from that second burger, has begun to decline. We can keep going, and if this person is still hungry, he can have a third burger, a fourth burger, let's say even a fifth burger. That fifth burger, he's eaten so much that he's starting to feel sick. That utility that he gets from going from four burgers to five may actually decline. He may be worse off. If that's the case, we say that that fifth burger has offered him diminishing marginal utility. His happiness has begun to go down. He may be in a situation with what my wife calls having a cuckoo belly. He may just be sick. That utility is, he is worse off. Right? We can model this by looking at not burgers, but right. So here we have a formal model. As you can tell from the shape of the curve, this is for a risk-averse person. Now, look at the graph here. The x-axis measures wealth, how much money this person has. The y-axis has the utility, the happiness that that person has from whatever level of wealth she has. So in our example here, with the blue boxes, current wealth is set at an amount, right? If we follow that amount up to and intersect the utility curve and go over, we can see how much happiness that person has from that level of wealth. Notice the shape of the curve tells us something. It says that as we increase wealth going from nothing, right, to really rich, right, the utility that that person gets from each little bit of wealth, every $1,000, let's say, is less than the utility she got from the prior $1,000, right? So in this case, this is another example of diminishing marginal utility, and it describes the following. The more wealth a person has, the less extra happiness, marginal utility, he would get from an extra dollar of wealth. There's an look at it, right? So how do we know that utility diminishes? Again, same curve, sloping, beginning very steeply and then begins to decline. And think about this, again, my comparison between a rich person and a poor person. If a poor person is walking down the street and finds a $20 bill on the ground, he will be pretty happy. He can say, oh, I can go get something to eat. I can put gas in the car. I can pay some bills. So that $20 bill for someone who has a low level of wealth is very meaningful. That offers him a lot of utility. If, on the other hand, you're Bill Gates, with I think he's number two in the world in terms of wealth, right? Probably $70 billion worth of wealth, right? That $20 for him is nothing. He might not even bend down to pick it up. Why? Because in our model, the marginal utility of wealth for Bill Gates of that extra $20 is pretty much zero, right? So the notion again here is that poor people get more pleasure from the same amount of increase in wealth than a rich person. So we can look at this notion of utility in a different way as well. So rather than compare a poor person to a rich person, we can compare the happiness, the attitude of a single person towards changes in her wealth. So here we have our same risk aversion curve, right? Comparing or showing the relationship between the utility of wealth and wealth itself, right? And so here we have, let's say, a hypothetical person who has $100,000 worth of wealth. Let's say that's this line right here. If I take that $100,000 person and change her wealth, give her another $1,000, so now she's worth not 100 but 101,000, we see that her utility will change, right? So here we go from $100,000 worth of wealth to 101,000. This is the increase in wealth. And here's the increase in utility, right? That person experiences from that change in wealth, that extra $1,000, right? Let's, instead of giving her $1,000, let's take $1,000 away. So now we're not at 101, we're not even at 100, we're 99. We are here. So we're going from our reference, our $100,000 down to 99,000. So her utility is goes down, right? And it goes down by a lot, right? So whereas here the change in utility from more wealth is this amount, here the change in utility or disutility, the subtraction from wealth, is this amount, a lot less, right? So compare the change here from losing 1,000 to the change here from gaining 1,000. A big difference. This tells me, this sort of proves what we talked about before, that the pain of losing $1,000 is more than the pleasure that one gets from gaining the same amount, right? And that proves the notion of risk aversion. A risk-averse person finds losses so painful she will work hard to avoid them. That describes risk aversion in a single graph. That's it for this one. The next one is, well, if people are risk averse, how do they deal with it? What do we do? How do they behave to avoid risk? Are there techniques, economic tools that one can use to avoid risk? And we'll talk about that in the next video.